Good evening, race fans, and welcome back after a little bit of a hiatus to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series. Tonight, we will be kicking off the first race of the season, the first race of 2023 Season 1, or in a little bit of a more succinct way to put it, the first race of Season 9. And I'll tell you what, I am thinking that this season is going to be a very exciting one because we will be shaking things up just a little bit this season. Going to, for some of these drivers, have a bit of a new leaf turned over, and for some of the other drivers out there, some of the veterans even, kind of having a bit of a return to tradition because this season, instead of running the late model like we have been doing for the past two seasons here with the Oval Series, the community vote has taken us back to the street stock, the car where it all began with the ASRC Oval Series just a little bit under 2 years ago. The very first ever Oval Series race with Attrition Sim Race Campus was hosted on December 21st, 2020 at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. And believe it or not, I was actually there for it. For those of you who watch the Return of Icy YouTube channel where I put my not Twitch related videos, back in the day when I competed in the ASRC Oval Series rather than being the broadcaster for it, that is where I cut my teeth. And I'll tell you what, it's really nostalgic to be back here in this car again, and I'm really excited to be seeing it from another perspective. Because back then, I was always the driver. That was long before I had any interest in broadcasting. So it's definitely going to be exciting to see what racing can be put on in these cars. Now, looking back a little bit of a quick history of where we are with the Oval Series. Back the first full year of the ASRC Oval Series was using the street stock. The first season, the championship was claimed by Brian Sabelski. Second season, claimed by Connor Wagner. Third season by Brian Sabelski again. Then season 4 claimed by Charles Cruz. Then after that, for the 2022 year, we had 2 seasons in the modifieds, and then for the remaining 2 seasons of 2022, that's when I started broadcasting for the series when we were using the late model. And now, as Emp Lemon once put it, when it comes to NASCAR style racing, it tends to all come full circle. But that said, qualifying getting pretty close to being in the books here tonight. We are out here at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, but not going to be using the main track here tonight. We're actually going to be using the miniature configuration, the Legends track, coming in at only a quarter of a mile or 0.4 kilometers in length. This is going to be a very tricky, very tight little racetrack for these drivers. And of course, here in the street stock in the real world is a car that was designed with the intent of racing on a budget. And here on the iRacing.com platform, it is the rookie level car. So every single one of these drivers here in the ASRC Oval Series, regardless of if they've been on iRacing for 1 month or for 10 years, they have experience in this car. That is just a simple guaranteed fact. And I think that is going to contribute to some very exciting racing throughout this season. That said, qualifying just about down in the books here tonight. So let's go ahead and take it down trackside for a look at our starting lineup for the first ever race of Season 9 of the ASRC Oval Series. Starting out on the pole here tonight, going to be the number 99 Upchurch entry of Tyler McRae for Droppin' Bombs Racing here on the pole. McRae picked up 6 wins last season back in the late model, and McRae himself has a bit of experience here with ASRC back when we used to run the street stocks as well, so McRae, a bit of a veteran, coming back to see if he can't claim the championship under his belt after a hard-fought battle last season. To his outside, driving the 145 Droppin' Bombs racing entry, gonna be Tyler McRae's teammate. That's the 145 of Mike Sukup. Back in P number 3, the 85 of Brian Sabelski. Call that 4-time champion Brian Sabelski. Of course, 2 championships back in the street stocks, like we talked about a little bit earlier. A championship from the modifieds when we ran the modifieds, and then finally he picked up the championship for season 8 just 2 weeks ago. That's Brian Sabelski starting in P number 3. Back in the 4th position, going to be Robert Kelm in that number 48 machine, followed by Jason Mong in the 70 back in P number 5. 6th place, going to go back to Corey Logan in that number 24 Maltese's entry, followed by the 93 of Jason Gardner back in P number 7. 8th place going to go back to the 18 of Steven Rex for Droppin' Bombs Racing, and finally, rounding out this 10-car field, going to be the 042 of Justin Carey and the 4 of Brad Ringer. Now, looking at the timing and scoring sheet over here to my side, it looks like Rex, Carey, and Ringer may not be making the call to the field here tonight, so it does look like it's actually going to be make it a 7-car event rather than the 10 that had initially signed up. Still bound to be a pretty exciting race, especially on a track as incredibly tiny and incredibly tight as this. And just to add a little bit of extra spice here to the series this season, caution laps do not count this time around. So if we have some yellows coming out, that's not going to count towards the total race distance, and we could see that seriously shaking things up depending on how these drivers end up behaving themselves. That said, pace car is off, green flag up in the air for race number 1 of season 1 of the ASRC Oval Series. Make that season number 9. I know how to speak. Regardless, teammates side by side throughout the first lap. You can see just how incredibly tiny this track is, way smaller than any of the tracks we've been to in the past 2 seasons. Fairly quickly, drivers starting to single file out. This is going to be a track that requires a little bit of negotiation to actually make things happen, because it's really easy to slip up and make a mistake, just like Travis Sukup did there in that 145 machine, having a little bit of a tap against the outside wall back there on lap number 2. That said, this time around, everyone negotiating the track fairly easily this time around. We will have to see if that remains the case for the next 100 laps, though, because I would imagine once we get later on into this race, we're going to see a little bit of the chrome horn put to use, a little bit of bumping and budging drivers out of the way, because at a track that is as small as the miniature layout of Nashville Fairgrounds is, pretty much the only way you're really going to be able to make a pass is to capitalize on other drivers' mistakes, and sometimes you just need to give the drivers a little bit of assistance in making said mistake. And just like that, already 7 laps in the books, not even 2 minutes into this race. That just goes to show how quickly these laps can tick by at such a tiny track. And Sabelski getting loose out of the corner there, manages to save it, manages to gather it up, but going to cost him a little bit of time here as he comes out of turn number 4. Currently trying to catch up to McRae and Sukup. Sabelski, of course, the champion last season and finished 2nd overall in the points the season before, if I remember correctly. So Sabelski looking to see if he can't put title number 5 under his belt this season, and if he could, it would be his 3rd title here in the street stocks with the ASRC Oval Series. But just in front of him, Tyler McRae and Travis Sukup, not only 2 teammates up together, working together in the lead, but McRae has a little bit of a bone to pick with Sabelski, because McRae last season, 6 wins under his belt. Lanier, The Boring, Southern National, New Smyrna, Five Flags, South Boston, all tracks he managed to pick up wins, but it just was not enough to edge out on Sabelski for the points championship. Sabelski attended every single race last season and had incredibly solid finishes with every single race last season, and with how the drop weeks shaped out, McRae just could not get it done. And I'll tell you what, this season, I'd imagine he's here with a little bit of a vengeance. He knows that he has the potential to get this championship, and he's going to work as hard as he can to try and pick it up this season. A little bit further back in the field, some familiar names throughout all of the standings here tonight. Naturally, of course, we have the two Jasons battling it out, the 93 and the 70 respectively. Currently, the battle back for the 5th position here. I feel like every time we talk about one of the two Jasons, they're battling it out with the other one in some capacity. Jason Mong not having the corner he was looking for heading there into turn number 1. They're falling back just a little bit from Gardner. And Gardner still putting the pressure down on Robert Kelman, that 48, just a little bit. Gardner, currently the most improved driver here tonight, which is not saying much because we're still at the very early goings of this race, but Gardner picked up 2 positions so far tonight, which is the most of any driver so far. He managed to get around Mong, he managed to get around Logan. So Gardner put himself up in the top 5, looking to see if he can't maybe squeak his way up onto the podium. 20 laps in the books already, a 5th of this race under our belts here tonight, just like that. Not even 5 minutes in, and looks like trouble for Kelm. Kelm's going to pull it way up high, potentially overshooting the corner or potentially having a little bit of technical difficulties, but he's going to be going way up high in the corner, and that's going to allow both the Jasons to get around him without any sort of issue. Still a long ways to go though, so Kelm could potentially make those spots back depending on how this plays out. Still a long way to go, but definitely, especially at a track like this, not what you're wanting to have happen. A little bit further back, that 24 Maltese's entry of Corey Logan currently being scored a lap down, the first car on the track that actually made it to the main, or rather showed up to the main, being scored a lap down. And it just goes to show again how short this track is. These drivers are setting roughly 14.5-second lap times, and that adds up incredibly quickly. Lap 25 already in the books as McRae heads out of turn number 4. That's going to be marking us a quarter of the way through this race in just 6 minutes. If this race stays green the way it is, we could be talking to our top 3 finishers fairly quickly here tonight, but that's a big what if. You know what they say, cautions breed cautions, and if a caution comes out here tonight and re-wrecks this field, it could prove to cause a little bit of chaos, because that's going to get these drivers incredibly eager to try and make some, dare I say, maybe a little bit daring passes compared to what they might try otherwise. A little bit of a battle going on. Jason Gardner going to be pulling it up high in turn number 1. That's going to allow the other Jason to get around him. Kelm also going to be looking down to the inside, but it's not going to work. That said, he has caught up just a bit, diving it a little bit lower down than Gardner is, but there's only so low you can go without hitting that pit entry wall, and if you hit that race for you is just over. There's no ifs, there's no whens, there's no buts. If you send it down too low and you hit the edge of that wall, that's it. So definitely want to try and dive it as deep as you can to just really try and get the nose up and under another driver, but at the same time, there's really only so much that these drivers have to work with in regards to actual room. That said, Kelm, also the next driver on the chopping block to be put a lap down, and you can see as we zoom out just a little bit, we'll take it over to the spectator camera here. Tyler McRae in that red, white, and blue car is creeping up behind Kelm slowly but surely, like I said, setting laps in roughly the 14.5 second mark. So Kelm only has about 2 seconds between himself and McRae. That would be making him the second driver a lap down here tonight. So something we'll have to keep an eye on, because lap traffic could slow down McRae's conquest here tonight just a little bit, depending on how McRae is able to get around them, because this is, of course, a very difficult track to pass at, and that includes getting around lapped cars. Currently, McRae building up a 2-second lead on his teammate of Sukup, which, when the lap times are only 14 seconds, 2 seconds is an incredibly big deal at this speedway. So we will have to see if McRae is going to be held up by Kelm at all or not. Currently, everyone on the field spread out just a bit. Everyone is roughly 2 seconds apart from each other, if not a little bit more. Just about everyone, dare I say, almost evenly spread out from each other with a little bit of variance there. McRae and Sukup both sailing away with their respective positions here tonight though, and then Sabelski in that 85 going to be scored back in P number 3. He has 4.5 seconds behind Sukup, so a bit of ground to make up. 4-time champion in that number 85 machine, potentially having a bit of work cut out for him. Of course, still plenty of time for things to be turning around, but if you're wanting to cement yourself in the championship for Season 9, it definitely never hurts to be picking up a win early. But right now, McRae, not only is he leading this race, but he looks like he is well on the way to be picking up pretty much all of the available bonus points to him as well. And sure enough, McRae starting to try and see if he can't get his way around Kelm. Kelm holding on, trying his best to stay on the lead lap. If a caution were to come out, he does not want to potentially be stuck a lap down. McRae going to send it down low, trying to get around Kelm again. Little bit of a touch, side by side, heading down into turns 3 and 4. Kelm stuck up on the high side, and another bit of a nudge. Kelm still trying with all his might to hold on to that position, but he's just not going to be able to hold off that number 99 of Tyler McRae. And as such, Kelm going to be the second driver on the speedway to be scored a lap down, and sure enough, just in front of them, Jason Gardner in that number 3 and 93. Another driver whose head is now on the chopping block. McRae showing a little bit of no mercy here tonight. And now, if I were in Kelm's position, I would really be hoping for a caution right now, because I would love to get the lucky dog and be put back on the lead lap before McRae manages to get around Gardner. Because if McRae manages to get around Gardner, then my chances of getting back on the lead lap are incredibly dashed. And looks like Kelm's going to be having a bit of a connection issue, and just like that, Kelm's going to be retiring from the race instantly. So hopefully everything is okay with the driver of that number 48 machine. That's going to be triggering the first caution of the evening, though. Let's take a quick look back and see what all happened to the driver of that 48 machine, but looks like something just came up and he had to retire from the race, because Doesn't look like there was any sort of mechanical issues on there. He just slammed on the brakes, immediately took the tow, and immediately closed the simulator. Just like that, no hesitation. And jumping back to our live feed, looks like we have two cars down on pit lane. That is the 99 of Tyler McRae and the 145 of Travis Sukup. Look like these two are our only takers for pit lane. Nope, sure enough, Corey Logan, Jason Mong also going to be coming down this time by. Definitely interesting to see. Currently about 48 laps in the books, and it looks like drivers are going to be trying to try their luck and take tires. And I mean, fair enough. Why not? The caution came out. Definitely not too high hopes of the caution coming out again. Sure enough, third time's the charm. Sabelski and Gardner also going to be coming down pit lane here tonight. So that's going to be making pretty much the entire field coming down pit lane for tires. And that will jumble up the current running order just a bit. So we'll have to see how things cycle through once everyone gets back out on the speedway. Lights off on the iRacing.com pace truck. So it looks like we should be going green again next time by. Looks like Tyler McRae going to be scored as the race leader with a 70 of Jason Mong now up in P number 2. So we will have to see if the curse reigns on. Will cautions breed cautions? The iRacing.com safety truck going to dive down into what little safety there is down there on that tiny pit lane. Green flag back up in the air. And McRae once again off to a very dominant lead. Gardner falling back just a bit, stuck up on that outside line. He's going to be falling back 3 positions just like that. Already being scored back into P number 5. Being on the outside line at these tiny legend style tracks, definitely a very difficult place to be, especially in these incredibly heavy street stocks. So definitely unfortunate for the driver of that number 93 machine. But still, plenty of time to work things out one way or another. That said, as we cross the line officially halfway through the race, Sabelski up in P2 managed to get around that 70 of Jason Mong, but will he be able to muster up the speed to get back up to McRae? Especially now that Sukup is up in P number 3. Sukup able to get around Mong, overdriving the corner a little bit and having to go up high. So now Sabelski is in a bit of a tricky situation because he is sandwiched between 2 teammates. So we're going to have to worry a little bit about catching up to McRae while also having to drive maybe a little bit defensively and keep from potentially getting a little bit of a bump from Sukup. 55 laps, now the distance in the book. Only 16 minutes that we've been racing. This could be well on its way to potentially set a record for the fastest race in the ASRC Oval Series, at least in terms of actual time. Certainly not in race distance, because 100 laps kind of been the norm. I mean, technically 100 laps actually hasn't been the norm, because originally, up until this season, we had been running 101 lap races for the whole little play on words of the league being Attrition, Sim Race Campus, and the beginner level courses of everything being 101 laps, but decided to just go with the simple and easy 100 laps this season. One lap can sometimes be the deciding factor, though, and we've seen it come out to be that way in these past 2 seasons that we've been broadcasting here with the ASRC Oval Series. But with cautions not counting anymore, that could potentially be making these races technically longer than they would have been with that extra lap anyway, especially now that we have gone from having just 3 overtime attempts, or actually just 1 overtime attempt, I believe, to having 5 overtime attempts now. So 5 chances at a green-white checkered finish before we just call it off. We say that's enough, and the race ends under yellow. And I'll tell you what, if we end up in a green-white checkered situation, having 5 of them to potentially go through could make for a very dramatic finish to a race. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. We still have this race here at the Nashville Fairgrounds Mini to get through. Travis Sukup looking to the low side to try and get around Zabelski, and it looks like he is going to get the nose down there. Zabelski stuck up to the high line side by side across the line. Zabelski going to lose the position. Up on that outside line, there's just not much he can do in that number 85 machine. Going to see if he can't retaliate and see if he can't do a little bit of the crossover here. Potentially going to be looking down to the inside of Sukup, but just not going to be close enough to do it that time by. So Zabelski, as usual, twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger, not running the NTO paint scheme anymore as we have switched to a new car, but that does not mean he is Twitch streaming any lists. Always going to be live at twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger, so if you want to see the perspective of one of the drivers in this race, definitely be sure to go check him out. The same can be said for Corey Logan back in that 24 machine, twitch.tv/CZZombieKilla. You can see it on the back of his car there. 2 drivers that Twitch stream their iRacing races fairly often, and of course always good to support the members of the league, so definitely be sure to go check out the drivers competing here and putting on the awesome racing we see every Monday night. Looking a little bit further back, Sukup, now that he's cleared Zabelski, is starting to build up a little bit of a gap. Zabelski has some work to do if he wants to catch back up to that number 145 machine. And Sukup, of course, going to be looking to see if he can't catch back up to McRae as well, but McRae's punched his ticket a long time ago. He has been setting some blisteringly fast lap times like in the tenths of seconds faster than everyone else, and Corey Logan going to be pulling it up high to let the race leader by. So not going to be holding him up at all there. If anything, going to make Sukup's job just a little bit harder. That said, growing closer and closer to 25 laps left to go. Not a whole lot of time left in this one. McRae still setting incredibly fast lap times, but that time by, he and Sukup actually set identical lap times, so going to be interesting to see if McRae is going to have the tires to last to the remainder of this race. And of course, Sukup going to send it down low, get around that lap car. And now the raceway is pretty much clear for him to try and catch back up to his teammate one way or another. 25 laps to go. Last time by, McRae setting another lap that's almost a full 10th faster than Sukup did, and then another 10th for Zabelski, Mong, and Gardner. So all these drivers a bit off the pace compared to our race leader. It's going to take a little bit of a miracle for some of these drivers to potentially catch back up there. Looking a little bit further back, Jason Mong having a little bit of damage on that number 70 machine. You heard him hurt there a little bit earlier. A little bit of a scrape against the outside wall. But let's be real, we're at a track that is 1/4 of a mile in length. That's going to happen one way or another, especially as Mong gets a little loose out of turn number 4 there. That said, just behind, Jason Gardner in that 93, currently running a little bit of a race of his own. He's got a huge gap in front of him, a huge gap behind him. but he's still trying his best in that number 93 Gulf entry to just pick up any points he can, because believe it or not, I believe, if I remember correctly, that Gardner's last win here with the league was in the street stock. So the street stock, a car that he has shown himself to be very skillful in, and I know that he's picked up wins in a couple of other leagues in the street stock as well. So maybe not the race he was hoping to have opening up the season here tonight, but definitely a driver that we need to be keeping our eyes on as we get further and further into the season. So currently, Kelm officially out of the race. He's going to be scored having completed 46 laps, before having to withdraw from the event. So he's going to officially be scored back in the 7th position. No chance of that changing. Corey Logan up in P number 6. Potentially, if we end up having a couple of cautions, we could see Logan getting back up onto the lead lap and putting some potential into gaining some positions in the remainder of this race, especially since cautions don't count. So green flag laps are going to be a big factor here tonight. 14 to go is the remaining distance. McRae, a 2.6 second lead in that number 99 machine. McRae just ready to sail it on home and call it an evening in that Upchurch number 99. Still a little bit of time remaining for him to go, but it looks like he is in a little bit of a groove here tonight. Let's ride on board with that number 99, the driver out of Chesterfield, Virginia. Pretty smooth sailing in that number 99 street stock. Getting closer to the 10 to go mark as he rounds the speedway this time by. Going to be the double high fives up in the air. 10 laps to go for these street stock drivers. 10 laps the distance. 2.5 seconds for McRae to try and make up, in another 4 seconds back for Sabelski. So unless we have a yellow, it looks like some of these drivers have kind of sealed their positions on the speedway just a little bit. There's just such a gap between these drivers that it's going to be very hard to make up these distances, especially with how short these laps are. Sukup going to be looking to try and get his way around that 24 of Logan yet again. Logan going to pull it up high and just let him on by. Gonna see if Sukup can't try and make his way back up to McRae. McRae still setting the fastest laps of any driver on the speedway by close to a tenth, not a full tenth that time by, but still some blistering lap times out of that number 99 as the big high fives up in the air. 5 laps to go for Tyler McRae. 5 more times around the speedway before he can etch his name in the record books for season number 9 as the first winner of the 2023 racing year. Yes, it is still 2022 on the calendar, but for the racing calendar on the iRacing.com platform, for all intents and purposes, it is 2023. Jason Gardner going to be the next driver being scored a lap down here tonight. Going to be pulling up high to stay out of McRae's way, and Sukup actually catching up a little bit. 3 to go. Call that 2 to go. 2 seconds for Sukup to make up. That's still, I believe, just way too big of a deficit to actually make work. But he's slowly but surely gaining ground on that number 99. White flag up in the air though. One more time around the speedway for Tyler McRae. before he can etch his name into the championship standings as our first race winner and our official points leader heading in to round number 2 of the ASRC Oval Series next week. Craig gonna be pulling it on down to the front stretch. Gonna have to see, will we be able to get a burnout out of that number 99? Looks like the answer is gonna be a no. But don't go anywhere, race fans. Well, we're actually getting one. He had to think about it a little bit. Had to get the okay from the crew chief to burn up the car. Not going to be needing it for next week. They have a new car ready to go. So the A-OK is there to do a little bit of a burnout. But now, don't go anywhere, race fans. We will be back in just a moment with an interview with your top 3 finishers. So we'll be back, race fans, in just a second. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back. Unfortunately, Tyler McRae having a bit of hardware issues with his computer, so he's not going to be available for an interview after picking up his first race win of the season. But coming back in P number 2, Mr. Mike Sukup, another podium under your belt in a pretty solid way to start off season number 9. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done?
Pretty good, pretty good. It was a fun track. I think that's the first time I've ever been there, I believe.
Always a first time for anything, and looks like it worked out pretty well in your favor in that number 145 machine. You reckon if anything hadn't gone differently in this race, if you would have been able to potentially wrestle the lead out of Tyler McRae here tonight?
I think I was pretty close. I had a mishap in the pits though that got me too far back. I'm not sure if I could have got him or not, but I was going to try.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. The pits on this track especially are incredibly tricky, and we've seen both in this league and in the Wednesday night league that pit strategy can be a lot more significant than people make it out to be, but regardless, you still managed to get it home on the podium, so definitely a good way to start off your season. And next week looks like we're heading into the Stafford Motor Speedway. How are you feeling about going into week number 2 in this street stock?
That's another track I do not believe I've been to, so it should be fun trying to learn something.
That sounds like a pretty solid plan. I mean, you made it work here tonight at a track you haven't really been to before, so I have faith that you'll make it work for you again next week. But before I send you off to go celebrate your P number 2 finish here tonight, is there anyone you'd like to thank for getting this number 145 up here on the podium here tonight?
Well, I guess I thank Tyler except he beat me, so Just Tyler. We have a good time. We got a couple of us that get together and just goof off and try to work on getting faster. So
Well, I reckon that's what ASRC is pretty much all about. So, of course, as always, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you competing next week.
thank you, man. We appreciate what you do, and we'll see you next week.
And finishing back in P number 3, Mr. Brian Sabelski has not actually picked up the radio yet, so we're going to give him another couple of moments to see if we can't get him up here for a little bit of a word. If not, then that might be all we have for y'all here tonight. But sure enough, here he is, Mr. Sabelski, finishing on the podium. It's been a long time since ASRC has been racing the street stocks, but we've come full circle, so to speak. We're back to where it all began. How are you feeling now that we're back in the car that you have scored 2 championships in?
Well, didn't have the setup tonight. That's pretty much long and short of it. It was just, yeah, it was just kind of like I didn't have the speed to compete with everybody else. But hey, that is what it is, right? You know, you do what you can.
Yeah, and either way, P3, not a bad place to be, especially since we're so early on in the season. Of course, next week, going to be going to a bit of a different track compared to tonight. We're going to be heading to the Stafford Motor Speedway. You feeling any particular way about heading into that track for week number 2?
Oh, Stafford's not a bad track. It's a fun track. I've had some okay runs there, so can probably squeeze out another good race. But it's gonna be one of those things where I'm just gonna have to wait and see. So hopefully I can get a little bit extra time over the weekend trying to run some setup stuff here. See if I can figure something out.
Sounds like a pretty solid plan. Definitely always good to get a little bit more practice under your belt, but either way, pretty solid start to the season for you. Do you reckon if anything played out differently in this race, if you would have managed to catch up to Sukup or McRae? Uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, Discord decided to crash just a little bit, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, to answer your question, in case you missed it, basically just they needed to crash. That's about it.
Yeah, that's certainly fair, and especially a track like this, I'm almost a little bit surprised that that didn't happen, because, I mean, only a quarter of a mile. I think if there was any track out there to have some incidents at, it would be this one, but y'all all ran an incredibly clean race, so kudos to all of you for making that work here tonight.
Yep.
But, of course, before I send you off and let you celebrate your podium finish here tonight, is there anyone you'd like to thank on the side of that 85 machine for getting you up here?
Yep. Well, I haven't updated my paint scheme yet, but of course, want to thank the y'all for putting this season on. Thanks to the folks at McConey Setup Shop, who I'm official sponsored driver for them for the season. So hoping I can do them proud. Jeff and the crew there. Um, Everyone hanging out on my Twitch channel. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Yeah, third's fine. I didn't have a whole lot of practice time this week. I was spending more time practicing I'm in a different league. It runs the GR86. So I was really focused on that this week and had a good race there tonight. Had a good race here tonight. And, hey, let's keep it rolling.
Good deal. Well, as always, thank you for coming out, Brian, and I look forward to seeing you competing next week.
Yep. Catch you later.
And sure enough, there you go, race fans. Interview with at least 2 of your 3 top finishers here tonight. Before we send it off here for the evening, looking at our race results for the evening, Tyler McRae going to be taking home the first win of the season in that number 99 machine, followed just behind by teammate of Travis Sukup. So Dropping Bombs Racing looking mighty fast here in season number 9. Back in P3, the 85 of Brian Sabelski, followed by Jason Mong in the 70 in 4th, and the other Jason, Mr. Jason Gardner, in the 93, back in 5th. 6th place can go back to Corey Logan in the 24, and then finally, rounding out the field here tonight, that's the 48 of Robert Kelm. So, bit of a quick one under our belts here this evening. Next week, same day, same time, Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern, we will be heading down to Stafford Springs, Connecticut for 101 laps, or I guess 100 laps now, here with round number 2 of the ASRC Oval Series. But for now, thank you all for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. And looks like next time we will be seeing y'all will be after the holidays, so happy holidays to whatever holidays y'all may be celebrating, either currently or very shortly. And I look forward to seeing you all for not only next week's race, but for 2023 as a whole. Thank you all for coming out, and I will see y'all next time.